It's October 18th, 2011, in Zanesville, Ohio. Sam Kopchak was walking his property doing a nightly check on his newly purchased horse. As he approached his beloved animal, he noticed something was wrong. He was spooked. Sam quickly turned around and spotted a large bear running along the fence that marked the property line. But that wasn't the end of his terror. Sam felt something familiar. The feeling of being watched. Sam turned around, and that is when he saw it. A male African lion, only yards away from him and his horse. The events that were about to unfold would spark a war between man and the world's most sophisticated killing machines. The darkness is coming, and death is out there, waiting. Welcome to Find Me in the Dark, a podcast covering all things true crime. This is episode 4, the Zanesville Animal Massacre. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Find Me in the Dark. I'm your host, Eric Phillips, along with my co-host, Robert Prestige.
Hey, what's up, guys?
So, today we have a really crazy story. And first off, before we even start anything, if you're an animal lover, like I am and like Rob is, this is a especially horrible story when it comes to that. I mean, we're talking about dozens of innocent exotic animals that get just completely mowed down by the police. So yeah, I mean that's your graphic content warning. If you don't want to hear about that, feel free to skip this one, but still rate it 5 stars because we need it. So our last episode, the Girl Scout one, did really well.
Yeah, you guys are amazing, man. We're constantly getting new fans, and we got our old ones that have been with us since day one. I mean, we love you guys. We appreciate everything, all the kind comments, the emails talking about the episodes. We love talking to our fans about what we're the episodes that we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, this one had a lot of comments too, like on YouTube and then on
iTunes
and stuff, getting all these ratings and feedback and stuff. Also, I mean, if you're commenting or emailing us, it doesn't have to be about the case that we're doing. You can recommend cases that you want us to cover, and most likely we will, because obviously, you know,
this is what we do.
And we're not going to stop, so we need content. We need stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I literally have no idea what Eric does for a living. All we do is talk about true crime.
That's true. Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, email us stuff you want us to cover. It'll be, fun for us to cover something that you guys want to hear. Maybe we'll put out like a poll or something like that.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah,
and like make it so they can add options so they can vote and stuff. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, so the story today is the Zanesville Animal Massacre. Like I said, for me, it's harder to talk about animals being killed than it is to talk about humans being killed.
That's the truth, man. I mean, they didn't ask to be put in those cages, you know? I mean, they were just innocent bystanders in a crazy man's world.
Yeah,
you know?
And, you'll hear it in the story that usually, I don't side with the police a lot, but in this one, it's, there's nothing else they could have done.
They had no choice, man. They were protecting the city.
And obviously, themselves. We're going to elaborate on that shortly. So, anyways, we're going to go ahead and start the episode. So, give it a listen. Hope you like it. Before 2014, exotic animal sale and ownership in Ohio was relatively unregulated. The industry was popular and highly profitable, generating around $10 billion annually worldwide. Lions, tigers, bears, monkeys, leopards, and many more were on the market and selling well. In 2014, Ohio passed a law stating no person could own or breed wild animals in the state. While the law stopped the purchase of animals, people that owned animals before the law existed were able to keep them as long as they obtained a permit which allowed them to keep the existing animals, but did not allow the continuation of breeding.
The list of restricted animals included lions, tigers, bears, elephants, certain types of monkeys, rhinos, alligators and crocodiles, anacondas, pythons longer than 12 feet, certain vipers, venomous snakes, tigers, leopards, and many more animals were protected under this law. The permit came with certain stipulations. The government would do random inspections to assure the owners were adhering to the standards agreed upon in order to receive said permit. Despite the laws that were put in place, in Ohio alone there were thousands of big cats in captivity.
While this law stopped the open sale of exotic animals, it ultimately created the black market of exotic animal sales. Sellers began hosting underground animal shows where you could buy big cat babies for prices as low as $300, completely unregulated. To put that into perspective, the average price of an accredited pure breed dog is in the $2,500 range. The business continued to generate massive profits, and the number of animals in captivity continued to rise, resulting in there being more tigers in captivity in the United States than in the wild.
Unfortunately, people have a natural desire to own things, to collect, to control the uncontrollable. What is the psychological reasoning for the need to own these animals? Is it narcissism? Is it the need to play God? Is it the desire to impress? To use the animals as social currency? Whatever the reason is, it is immoral, disgusting, and proof that humanity is inherently selfish and damaging. Nature is not to be trifled with, and Ohio is about to learn that lesson the hard way.
All right, man. So the lack of regulations and laws preceding 2014 was just wild. And I'm thinking, dude, like there's been laws set in place forever, like for decades. Mm-hmm. And then you hear 2014, it's like, hey, man.
It's like you can't own more than 3 dogs in Wisconsin, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But yet you can buy big cats pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, I'll get a fucking baboon and it's fine. It's like, what? Why do people want to own these animals? I don't understand it. Like, why do you want, what's the need to have a tiger?
To control the untamable? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's 100% to impress, right? It's peacocking, right?
For
you
sure.
know, like, hey, guess what? If you're outside and you're walking your tiger, you're an asshole. You know?
Yeah.
That's just really, I don't know. And it's so disgusting because those animals, just the thought of them walking back and forth in like a 16 by 16 cage, it's just horrible.
Yeah,
it's horrible.
I mean, we watched, some documentaries and, you see it on TV all the time. You see all these animals in these small cages.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't imagine being locked in a 10 by 10 my entire life.
I mean, we've been in county. But
yeah, pretty much. I mean, yeah.
I mean, but that's the same thing.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the same thing, man. I mean, these animals are, and a lot of these animals are pack animals. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like these wolves and even tigers and lions and
mm-hmm.
stuff. I mean, they're all in a tight knit group.
Absolutely.
So the fact that they're in these tiny cages, probably with one other tiger or something like that, maybe not even.
Right.
Maybe not even. And the owners of these animals had to meet the absolute bare minimum. Like, it basically your cage just had to be able to hold together.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you got some chicken wire and some string, you're good, dude. It's just crazy.
It's sad is what it is.
I don't get it. Hey, and why the hell do you have tigers in Ohio, dude?
I guess there's nothing else to do.
Could you dude, is that not the worst luck of all time? Like, could you imagine, like, let's just say this happens, right? Some guy comes to your natural habitat in some beautiful rainforest or some beautiful, like in Africa, and he just picks you up and drops you off in Ohio, dude. Is there anything worse, man? Is there anything worse? You come from some beautiful, beautiful place and get dropped in Shittsville, Ohio. Like, that's so sad, man. That's so sad. Yeah. I don't know. Well, let's get into a little bit of history about Zanesville, which isn't much.
Yeah.
But yeah, Zanesville, Ohio is a sleepy town with a population of around 25,000 people, located only 52 miles outside of Columbus. It's an industrial town in the middle of flyover country. Zanesville is the definition of middle America, hard-working, quiet-living people, the physical manifestation of Americana. Life was happy and simple until one event would change the face of the town forever. Zanesville would live in infamy for the unforeseeable future.
Terry William Thompson was an all-American kid who grew up in the 50s and 60s as a normal, happy, all-American boy. He grew up on his parents' farm just east of Zanesville. He absolutely loved the farm life. He tended to the animals and formed strong relationships with every single one of them. Terry was a typical Midwest kid. He loved camping, fast cars, pretty girls, and living on the land. Terry was only a junior in high school when he met his future wife, Marion Sharp, at horse shows that were held in the area. Terry and Mary had a lot in common. Most importantly, their shared love for all animals. They quickly fell in love and were basically inseparable from there on out. Terry graduated high school during an incredibly chaotic time.
Almost immediately after his graduation in 1967, he was selected in the draft to serve as a gunner in Vietnam. The war changed him in a way that he would never recover. He witnessed the most brutal aspects of humanity, hell on earth. He witnessed death at every corner, lingering in his mind at all times. He carried multiple of his dead and bloody friends out of the jungle, and while he returned from active duty in 1970, the man who left was not the same man that returned. The war was over, but the struggle to survive was just beginning. After returning from the war, Terry had a hard time adjusting to civilian life. He had an insatiable desire for adrenaline and was searching for ways to fill that void. Upon his return, he bought a brand new Corvette and frequently pushed the boundaries, racing and traveling at extreme speeds on a regular basis.
His desire to go fast was growing, which resulted in him collecting fast cars. This was the beginning of Terry's hoarding habits and a peek into the future of him collecting extreme things. In 1977, Mary and Terry were married after over a decade of being together. After their marriage, Terry attended a local exotic animal show and bought the couple's very first animal, an African lion cub named Simba, that was given to Mary as a gift for her birthday. This was just the beginning. Over the years, they amassed a large collection of big cats and other dangerous exotic animals, the number climbing all the way to 56. The couple planned to keep all of these animals on their 73-acre compound, but in order to accommodate the massive collection, they began to build enclosures, eventually becoming some sort of gorilla zoo.
All right, we're going to take a little break to tell you guys about this new true crime podcast called Moonshine, Murder, and Mayhem. The host, Bran, is a good friend of Find Me in the Dark and all of us here. So, yeah, subscribe on Apple Podcasts. I also know that he has a Facebook group where you can communicate with him and just tell him how you love the podcast and the episodes. So let's go ahead and play this promo. And like I said, go and subscribe.
I'm afraid bad things might happen to you if you start talking about stuff like that.
You told me a story about 5 years ago of what happened to Slim, my great-grandfather.
He was a taxi driver in Warren County area or in McMinnville area. And he picked up moonshine, and he went and picked it up, and he took it to the people.
Hey, Bran, I totally saw where you're working on this new podcast that has to do with moonshining. Give me a call when you can. I've kind of got some history with my family and moonshining, and just give me a call. Bye.
Dude never talked about it at all, about what happened to his daddy.
Bran, are you ready for what you might find? I hope you don't regret this.
Join the search on the brand new true crime podcast, Moonshine, Murder, and Mayhem.
All right, now back to the story. His love for these animals did not reflect the living quarters. The cages were small, poorly maintained, causing the animals to be forced to live in their own filth for long periods of time. Neighbors and fellow citizens began to grow concerned for the health of these animals, eventually calling the authorities a shocking 35 times over the years, eventually resulting in Terry being charged with animal cruelty and being sentenced to house arrest. 18 tigers, 9 male lions, 8 female lions, 6 black bears, 3 mountain lions, 3 grizzly bears, 1 baboon, 3 wolves, 3 monkeys, and 3 leopards were all kept on the compound and forced to live in terrible conditions. Terry was forced by the government to meet certain living standards for the animals, or they would be removed from his care. He complied with the order and passed many inspections.
Back in 1977, Terry opened a motorcycle shop, which was so successful it eventually became the town's Harley-Davidson dealership. The couple ran the business all the way into the 90s, and somewhere in that time, Terry acquired a license to sell firearms. The couple eventually sold the business, and Terry's quest for thrill continued. He raced cars, boats, and even flew planes. Terry's main source of income was generated by his sales of firearms. He has a large collection of rifles, shotguns, pistols, and many other types of firearms. Terry allowed his license to lapse, but this never slowed down his business. He continued to sell guns, regardless of not having a license to do so.
This would prove to be a giant mistake. In June of 2008, he took on a new customer. Unbeknownst to Terry, this was no normal customer. He was in fact an ATF informant and was wearing a wire during the sale. Terry ended up making the sale to the informant, which resulted in the ATF raiding the property and confiscating 133 firearms, including 5 unregistered automatic weapons and 3 sawed-off shotguns. He tried to fight the charges, but with his debt increasing, he eventually pled guilty to the charges and was sentenced to 1 year and 1 day, but was released after only 10 months. During his time in prison, Mary was left to tend to the animals.
She had some help, but a majority of the responsibilities were on her shoulders. This proved to be too much for her. She worked day and night to feed the animals and maintain the cages, but it was weighing on her physically. On top of all of these issues, the couple found themselves massively in debt. They were hemorrhaging money and had no income to support themselves or the animals. Mary couldn't take it anymore. With Terry being in prison, taking care of the animals, and the bills piling up, she packed her bags, left the compound, and in turn, left Terry. After Terry was released from prison, he was devastated by Mary's departure. His friends described him as utterly devastated and heartbroken, as if he had lost a part of his soul. This on top of his previous mental struggles from the war, his mind was slowly crumbling under the pressure.
When Terry arrived at the compound after his release from prison, it was in utter disarray. Weeds were everywhere, the cages were filthy, and someone had moved the animals from cage to cage, causing Terry to lose track of who was who, making it impossible for him to communicate with them by name. Soon after his release, Terry received a letter in the mail from an anonymous source, claiming that while he was away, Mary was having an affair. He was devastated. The only person left in his life he thought he could count on betrayed and abandoned him. Terry had lost everything and was coming unhinged. The only emotion stronger than love is hate. He wanted revenge. How could he make Mary pay for what she did to him? Through the animals. The end of their world was upon us. Death is imminent. If he can't have them, no one will. You know, it's hard to be mad at this dude right now, you know, like of how, because I don't think anybody that was in combat in Vietnam came back the same.
You're right.
I don't think so. And back then, like, PTSD was not a thing.
Right.
You know, these aren't people that are getting the help like they are today. You know, they say, I can't remember the number. I read something recently where it said, you know, the guys that came back from Iraq and Afghanistan, it was like 79% of them had PTSD.
I mean, it makes sense.
And the horror that went on in Vietnam, that's not a normal war, man. You're fighting people in the jungle that you don't know where the hell they are.
Right.
And, you know, it's, and I don't know. And I know there was one part, I don't know if we mentioned it, I don't remember, but they said that when Terry was in Vietnam, that the only way he could calm down is that he like took on a pet.
Yeah, he made friends with like a monkey. Yeah.
A monkey. He said he would
Used
feed
to
the monkey.
feed him bananas and stuff.
Which totally makes sense, and then it totally makes sense that he would come back and that obsession would be like tenfold.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And him wanting to race cars and fly planes and boats and all kinds of stuff, that makes sense too. Because when you're in a war and there's bombs and guns and traps and all kinds of shit all over the place, how are you going to come home and just go work in a factory?
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? How you gonna like just drive a Chevy and go like 40? You're going the speed limit? No, you're not. Not if you're coming back from Vietnam.
It's hard to match the adrenaline once you're so used to it.
Yeah, I mean, especially that war.
Right.
Unreal. And then I don't really get the whole gun sale thing. Like, I guess you can profit off of it, but it seems like when you're licensed, I get it. But when he let his license lapse and continues to sell, he had to know that he was going to get caught.
For sure. I mean, it's a small town. There's
no way. Yeah. And then why would you sell to someone you don't know? Hey, man, criminal 101. Don't sell to people you don't know, or at least one of your friends knows and can vouch for him or something like that, I don't know, man. And then the hoarding stuff. I mean, I don't know where hoarding comes from. I've never, like...
I mean, neither one of us are hoarders. So
no, I know people that, like, keep, like, newspaper from, like, they got shit from the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Or people that, like, in this, I mean, I've heard of cat ladies, man, but this dude took it to a whole different level. Like, that's wild. And then, like, man, if you love these animals so much, then why are the cages so terrible?
I mean, do you think? I don't think he purposely was doing it. I mean, I really think that he honestly loved these animals.
I'm sure he did,
but in a weird way. Like it's something that we can't really comprehend, I guess. I don't know. I mean, there's definitely some kind of mental state there
for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're gonna get animals, man, and you're a compromised human being from Vietnam, and then you just have your wife, like, and they had some people working with them, but not enough. There's just not enough. They were working, dawn to dusk, mm-hmm. after dusk, into the night, feeding these animals like thousands of dollars worth of meat, a month or a week.
Yeah, even. I mean, they're talking. My guess is probably about what, $30,000 a month.
It has to be
somewhere around there. I mean, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of meat.
That's a lot of meat, dude.
It's not like you can grow your own vegetables, and they're carnivores, like,
right, dude. And then I don't really blame Mary for leaving Terry. It's kind of shitty to do it, while he's in jail. That's like breaking up with somebody through text.
Right.
Be like,
right.
Hey, we're over. LOL. Bye.
Right. And just straight emojis.
But you have to think of everything that she was trying to handle, with his mental state, and then he's spending money that they don't have, buying these cars, buying, boats and planes, and
right.
And then these animals, like, and she's, she didn't sign up for this, okay, she got a lion cub for her birthday. That's cool.
Keep one.
Right. And then you got, like, what, 50 something, 56,
56, yeah, 56, I think.
Animals. I mean, at what point is it enough? At what point, you gotta, I don't know, dealing with his mental stuff from Vietnam, and then dealing with the animals and dealing with the cars. I don't see how she did it at all.
Right.
But yeah.
Let's jump into the crime.
Do it.
All right. The date is October 18th, 2011. Terry's neighbor, Sam Kopchak, was out on his property doing his nightly check of his beloved horse, Red. Sam noticed something odd about Red's behavior. He seemed extremely spooked. That is when Sam noticed a truly terrifying scene. A bear was running by the fence dividing his and Thompson's property. Kopchak was quoted in the Post-Gazette saying, "I never really thought of the animals, to tell you the truth." After seeing the bear, Kopchak decided it was best to call Terry and inform him of his escaped animals, as he and his mother had done in the past, seeing as this is not the first time that the animals had escaped.
Immediately after deciding to call Terry and tell him his bear had escaped, Sam felt something, a familiar feeling. He could feel that eyes were locked on him, watching his every move. That was when Sam saw a male African lion lying only yards away, the only thing separating them being a small wire fence that was designed to contain horses. Kopchak was quoted as saying, "He's not going to get me, and he's not going to get my horse." He grabbed his horse and locked themselves in the barn in an attempt to protect themselves from the world's deadliest predator. Sam calls his 84-year-old mother, Doris, who is still in the house, and informs her of the situation unfolding right outside her door. Doris attempts to call Thompson, but gets no response, and is forced to call 911.
911. And down at Terry Thompson, a lion's loose. There's a bear running back and forth on a fence right here. They're on the interstate. 911. Yeah, there's a lion on Mount Perry Road in Gray Shot.
I'm pretty sure, and I just saw a wolf.
I think I just seen one. Looks like a jaguar or a wolf or something.
Shortly after Doris called 911, Deputy Jonathan Mary arrived at the property, where he immediately spotted 2 black bears, a Bengal tiger, and an African lioness sitting on the Thompson side of the dividing fence. He parked his patrol car and made his way to the door to speak with Doris. While Mary was waiting for her to answer the door, he spotted a gray wolf running southbound on the property. He jumped into his cruiser and followed the wolf until it started heading towards a house nearby. By that time, the call had came out over the radio. Sheriff Letts ordered all animals that were off the Thompson property to be shot dead, due to there being an apartment complex bordering the Thompson property and a child's soccer game being played only a mile away.
Okay, put the word out. If it's close to the fence and it looks like it's coming over, I don't want it out.
The last thing we wanted was for those animals to get over the fence and be traveling in our community roaming free.
Well, right now we're shooting to kill.
Mary exits his vehicle, takes aim at the wolf, and shoots it dead with 1 shot. After he shot the wolf, a call comes over the radio from another officer on scene saying they had a lion cornered and needed backup. Mary is the only officer on property carrying a rifle, so he jumps in his car and heads toward the cornered lion. Before he could get there, another officer flagged him down in the Thompson driveway. Mary stops and gets out of his cruiser to see what the situation was. Immediately after exiting his car, Mary is met by a 350-pound black bear. At first, the bear is just facing him, staring into his eyes, but before he knew it, the bear was charging straight for him. Mary leans into his car to try and retrieve his rifle, but it gets snagged on his laptop, so he pulls his Glock from the holster and fires a shot. The bear dropped only 7 feet away from Mary. He holsters his Glock and grabs his rifle from the car.
The chaos is just beginning. Just seconds after Mary eliminated the bear, he spots a lioness crawling under the livestock fence and then sprinting towards the house nearby. He aims his rifle and kills the lioness before she reaches the home. Mary hops back in his cruiser and heads north, back towards the location where he had spotted the bear and tiger while tracking the lioness. Before he could make it back to deal with the bear and the tiger, he spots a cougar running south. So he turns the cruiser around and tracks the big cat into another driveway, where to his surprise, he is greeted by a male African lion coming from the opposite direction. Mary draws his rifle and shoots the lion, while nearby officers kill the cougar that he was initially following.
After the chaos of killing multiple animals, Mary is tasked to secure the perimeter between the highway and the property line. But the horror was far from done. Throughout the night, As the sun fell and the darkness took over, Mary continued his war with nature's most sophisticated killing machines, killing a wolf, 2 lions, a tiger, and a grizzly bear while trying to secure the line between the property and the highway. Yeah, man. That part where he's like tracking a lioness and then just randomly, it's like all different kinds of shit.
It's like north, south.
It's literally,
north, south.
here's you know what it sounds like, man? It sounds like somebody skipped a turn in Jumanji. Like this is that's what it sounds like, man. It's just unreal, man. Unreal. And then I can't imagine how he felt about this, like how he felt during the confrontation. Because it's just, I mean, he's got to feel bad, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you're scared.
I would. But at that point, you have no choice.
You're super scared already, and you're thinking about the apartment complex next door, and then that kid's soccer game going on.
I mean,
man.
just the town in general. I mean, you got 20-some thousand people you got to think about.
Yeah, and you know, and then all they have is that livestock fence. Like, you're telling me that they did inspections on this place and didn't tell him he needed a better fence?
Right.
Like, what is that? That makes no sense. And then just the burst of animals that were encountered in such a short period of time, that's insane to me. That's insane. The fact that he's
terrifying.
Like, a bear's running at him, he's shooting cougars, shooting tigers, shooting lions, and this is all like within minutes.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where he can't even get to help his fellow officers because there's too many animals in between him and the officers.
Right.
You know? Like, he can't help anybody.
This is not even on the property. This is just what's going on outside of it.
Yeah, because they're trying to secure the perimeter and make sure, you know, that nothing gets out. So you're only talking about, I don't know, a dozen or so animals that are probably outside the property that they're just
many.
way too many that they're just mowing down. And it's not the animal's fault.
Yeah, I mean, we've touched on that already, and we'll continue to say it because it's not. It's a tragic situation for these animals.
Right. And just, trying to control those animals, especially with him being the only guy with a rifle. I mean, you know, trying to shoot a full-fledged, full-grown male African lion, just being like, pew, 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 and that thing just staring at you like, all right, man, you look delicious. I'm coming for you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure those animals are scared, man. They don't know what's going on, too. You know, it's just, I hate it. I hate this situation, but it is what it is, man. I mean, it happened, unfortunately. Sometime during the war with the animals, Sheriff Lutz arrives on the scene and meets with Sergeant Blake to discuss the strategy. They both come to the conclusion that the best plan of action is to drive to the house to find Thompson. As they are driving towards the house, they see animals everywhere and quickly realize the majority of the cages had either the locks cut off or left open for the animals to escape. They stop the car outside of the Thompson house and sound the horn in an attempt to get his attention. After he didn't get a response, they turned around and headed down the driveway, where they would meet with his animal's caretaker, John Moore.
Since John was extremely familiar with the property and the layout of the house, Lutz and Blake decide it would be best to go back to the house with Moore. The men enter Thompson's house, where they find 2 monkeys and a dog, all still in cages, but no sign of Thompson. Since they couldn't seem to locate him, they returned to the vehicle and drove back down the driveway towards the road. Before they could get to the road, they spotted Thompson, lying on the ground outside of his barn, with a white tiger hunched over him, tearing at his flesh. The tiger glared back at the men, chewing whatever piece of Thompson was in his mouth. There was no doubt in anyone's mind that Thompson was dead. They collect themselves and continue on towards the end of the driveway where they would devise their plan.
We had animals outside that fenced area along the road that were trying to get loose. I had deputies that had to shoot animals with their sidearms at close range. That's how volatile this situation was. We are not talking about your normal, everyday house cat or dog. These are 300-pound Bengal tigers that we've had to put down. When we got here, Obviously, public safety was my number one concern. I gave the order on the way here that if animals looked like they were going out, they went down.
Standing in a circle outside the car, Lutz and Blake began to gather information from Moore. Moore initially tells them there are 48 animals on property, but his count is incorrect. There are actually 56 animals in total. Lutz and Blake realize that they need to contain the animals on the property before they can escape and terrorize the town. They contact Deputy Todd Naval, and they have him put together a task force specifically designed to eliminate these escaped animals. They assemble a mobile firing squad, with Blake driving a Chevy Silverado crew cab, with 4 deputies in the bed of the truck equipped with a bolt-action rifle, 9mm HK MP5 submachine gun, and assault rifles.
The first action of the firing squad is to retrieve the body by the barn. They reached their destination and were immediately charged by 2 lions that were hiding in the barn. They opened fire and dropped the lions only 10 feet in front of them. From where they were standing, they could see the clearly deceased body of Thompson, with the tiger still hovering over him, gnawing at his corpse. The tiger had crushed his skull, tore his face almost completely off, and ate his genitals. Before they could form a plan to retrieve Thompson's body, a call came through, requesting backup at the southern end of the compound where big cats were spotted, about to leave the property. On their way to help the other officers at the other end of the property, they spotted a male African lion.
They opened fire, but after the first shot, the cat ran and hid between 2 junk cars that were stored on property. They stood up in the bed of the truck and approached the cars in an attempt to attack the lion from an elevated standpoint. They spotted him between the cars, and the 2 officers opened fire, killing the lion where he stood. They continued on to the southern end of the property, where they engaged countless escaped animals from 70 to 100 yards away, with 2 officers opening fire until the threat was eliminated. The task force had fired so many shots that they were almost completely out of ammo, so they called and requested more to be brought to them.
After securing the southern end of the property, they returned to the barn, where the tiger had now left Thompson's body. Upon approaching the corpse, they noticed several items surrounding him: bolt cutters, a Ruger 357 Magnum revolver, and raw chicken scattered around his body. After noticing the bullet hole in Thompson's head, they quickly realized that this was no accident. Thompson had intentionally released the animals and killed himself, leaving an entire community at risk. 6 animals survived the massacre: 3 big cats, 2 monkeys, and a single bear. The animals were sent to the Columbus Zoo to recover. A little more than a year later, Miss Thompson picked her animals up from the zoo and returned them to the compound, where she would watch over them. What we have just witnessed is selfishness to the highest degree. Thompson sacrificed his animals and his community as an act of revenge. His legacy as a coward will be the only thing he is remembered by. Man. Well. What a crazy and unfortunate story. But you got to give it to the cops, man.
I mean, they had to do what they had to do.
Yeah, there's no other choice. It's not like all these cops have tranquilizer guns in their vehicle that they can just pull out and shoot animals with.
And we should definitely hint that there was some animal, not rights people, but they were having
save the rhino.
Save the rhinos.
Deal.
Yeah, and I know they caught wind of what was going on, and so they armed themselves with tranquilizer guns and stuff, and tried to make their way there. But by the time they got there, I mean, there wasn't really much that they could do.
There's not enough time. I mean, all those animals escaping, and there's only so many cops that are there, and even the guns that they were equipped with at the beginning were not, enough. Just the one rifle and then the handguns. But when they got that task force together, that's when shit started coming together. Right. Unfortunate stuff where you're killing all these tigers and bears and stuff, but there's nothing you can do. Right. The property is not maintained well, and the fence is not maintained well, and it's just super easy for these things to escape, so they got to shoot them. That's it.
It just goes to prove that, I mean, these shouldn't be caged animals and, locked away for your fun, Like,
of course. I mean, if your dog gets out, it could be a dangerous thing depending on the type of dog that you have,
right.
And just the PTSD that these cops probably carry still today has to be unreal. I mean, it has to be unreal.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine having to do that. I mean,
dude, I feel bad putting down a dog.
Right. In euthanizing them in a humane manner.
Yeah, and then a violent way of killing these cats and everything, these beautiful animals that didn't ask to be there in the first place, And honestly, man, I know Thompson is a vet, and he definitely has some mental issues and stuff, but it doesn't make you less of an asshole for owning these animals and releasing them and then committing suicide. Like, that's the most selfish thing I've ever heard in my life.
I mean, just him releasing those animals, I mean, go ahead and shoot yourself if that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
But these animals didn't need to meet that fate that way.
No, you know what that is, really? It's a tantrum.
For sure.
That's what it is. You're acting like a child, but what your tantrum is putting everybody in that town in danger. It's not a big town. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on right outside this place, like a soccer game, dude. There's kids out there, man. Yeah. Like, why would you do that? And then his wife, dude. Hey, man, you went back. Who let her take these animals back? Why would you let her do that after what just happened?
And then putting them back, in the same place.
Yeah, the same exact place where these animals are probably terrified of because they witnessed what happened, and it's, I don't know. I think the main thing to take from this story is that absolutely no one should own these animals.
I agree 100% with that. Let them stay wild. They're meant to be wild.
Yeah, and I mean, I think probably the biggest issue with that is that you can't take these cats and bears and stuff that have been in captivity their entire life, and you can't just release them in the wild now. So what do? So you put them in like an actual maintained zoo that has experts that are taking care of these animals and have funding to feed them and wash them, and but the breeding has to stop.
Right, in which they made laws to try to stop it. I mean, there's obviously underground markets for this stuff, which is,
there has to be, because zoos are still a thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, if they're not breeding, then what the hell? Zoos have been open for 40, 50 years.
Right.
I doubt those tigers are 50 years old, man. So somebody's breeding stuff, and it just shouldn't happen, man. It's such a sad story for everybody, for the cops, the animals, the community, to have to deal with that and then that community got put on the map.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, when I think of Zanesville, that's immediately what I think of. Can't think of anything else.
Yeah, Zanesville Massacre.
Yeah,
right.
That's
after.
it. Right after it, Massacre.
Yeah.
Every time you look it up, that's it. You don't. Even if you're just trying to look up the population of the town, if you put in Zanesville, animals.
Yep.
Animals. So yeah, guys, we appreciate you listening. All your support. It's so incredible. We're lucky to have such good friends that listen, and even the people that aren't our friends that listen. I mean, we're beyond, grateful for this.
Yeah, man. it keeps us going, and it keeps us, we really enjoy doing what we do. I mean, basically, we're literally just sitting here talking about things that we usually talk about anyways. But we have mics in our face and we're recording it,
right? And it's like we would continue doing this if one person was listening to it,
sure.
But it makes it a lot better that we know that people were. It's almost like, I don't know, it's like storytelling to people, but it's with history. It's historical things that are. A lot of them are important. This is important.
Right.
There's a lesson to be taken from almost everything that we've done so far, But yeah, guys, we're going to start working on this next episode. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I could change it tomorrow. I don't know, dude. I'll be like, we're going to cover, blah, blah, blah. And then tomorrow I'll be like, that's bullshit. We're going to cover this. I never know.
Either way, there'll be an episode in another 2 weeks.
Yeah. So go on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, YouTube, and subscribe. Give us a good rating. Leave comments. We love reading people's comments, so that's awesome.
For sure. Just send us messages anyways. I mean, we enjoy talking to people, especially, we're in a true crime thing, and so not everybody in the population, likes what we listen to, know? So it's cool to have a community behind us that enjoys, I guess enjoy is really not the word, but
is
interested in
in
the same things that we are,
Right. Yeah. So go ahead and do that and sign up for our Patreon. We're going to do an extra episode next week that we'll be releasing for our Patreon users.
Most importantly, guys, be safe. I know it's a crazy time in the world right now, so
yeah,
stay at home if you can. Wash your hands.
Yeah, and email us if you guys have any comments or any cases that you want us to do. It's findmeinthedarkpodcast@gmail.com. Rob, good job today, man.
Yeah, same to you, Eric.
All right, guys, Find Me in the Dark. Out.
Love you guys.